Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this one, I'm going to be going over my latest purchase, and that being this, the GPD Win 4 8840U, which is the 2024 model. So I picked this up just recently from my favourite retailer, UK.WhatGeek. They obviously don't know I exist, and I paid about 6 or 7 purchases from them so far, this being the most expensive. And it's the first, what I would call modern handheld, because the last modern handheld, in inverted commas, that I purchased was the Steam Deck. Proper full-fat x86 beefy device. Okay, I've got a couple of devices since then, things like the Neo Air Plus 1215U. That's more of a very specialist. It's a much lower powered, not really targeted at the mainstream. So this is a mainstream competitor, the GPD Win 4. It's been out for a little over a year now, but it's had 3 iterations. It started with the AMD 6800U, I think it was. Then it moved on to the 7840U, and now it's the 8840U, which isn't much of an uplift processor spec-wise, but apparently it does make a difference. Now, I only picked this up because the price was really good, and as you can see, the case looks absolutely perfect. The model I got in question is the black one. Now, I wanted a white one, but UK.WhatGeek had just started stocking the black one. The price was right. It was a little bit cheaper than any of the other stockists, the cheapest next stockist I could find in the world, not the UK, because the UK stockist was much more expensive. And I was able to use the usual WhatGeek discount code of WGRG, which gives you 12% off. So that knocked another 12% off, plus the £20 I think I got off initially, which knocked off over 100, I think it was about 106 or 113, something like that, pounds off, which was a good discount. So yeah, I've been quite happy with the kind of performance spec that I have in my collection. So low-end devices like the Neo 1215U, that's great for little indie games. I like the 6-inch form factor. It's quite wide, but it's a lot narrower and shorter in height, and not so thick either when you compare it to something like the Steam Deck. And then the Steam Deck I use just for everything else. Now, I'm probably one of the few people that bought the original LCD Steam Deck, and I'm still using that now. I didn't upgrade to the OLED version. I didn't feel it was a big enough jump for me, having already purchased the original Steam Deck. Okay, the extra storage would have been welcome. The OLED screen, yeah. Okay, I accept that the screen isn't great on the Steam Deck, but other devices that I have got cracking screens. And I wanted to get something that was at least as good as, say, the Neo. It's got a good screen. I like the screen on that. It's very vibrant. And the GPD Win 4 seemed to hit all those spots. So what else have we got here in the box? We've got a 65-watt power brick with the adapter bits. Now, these adapters are usually a bit janky, but this one actually fits pretty tightly. I'm not sure I'll use this. Might use this abroad, actually. Might use it while I travel. We'll see. We'll see what kind of output it does. If it does 110, then that'll be handy if we go to Europe. Anyway, moving on. Let's go over some of the features of this. Now, I've used Copilot to help me out here a little bit, just to compare things. I thought it would make life a little bit easier. And what does it say here? So when it comes to the Steam Deck, it's obviously clearly much larger than the GPD Win 4. The Win 4 is much more compact, although quite a bit thicker front to back. Its smaller form factor makes it easier to carry and to travel with, which would make sense because the Steam Deck is pretty massive. Now, while the Steam Deck's larger, it's also more ergonomic in design, and so some people might prefer the feel of the Steam Deck with its big bumps in the back. The bumps in the back of the Win 4 are negligible, but I find it quite comfortable. So looking at the actual dimensions, the GPD Win 4, it weighs 598 grams. It feels really dense and heavy. It's quite small and it feels very heavy for its size. Its dimensions are 8.6 inches by 3.6 inches by 1.1 inches. I don't know why I've got those measurements, but I have. In comparison, the Steam Deck weighs 669 grams. So it's actually, noticeably more heavy, which I'm kind of surprised about. I might actually check those figures and overlay the correct figures if those aren't right. Dimensions-wise, it's 11.7 inches by 8.29 inches by 0.58 inches. So, as you can see, it's considerably thicker. It's about half the thickness at its thinnest point, rather than its thickest point. And it's considerably bigger. Now, the GPD Win 4 is significantly lighter, more compact than the Steam Deck. So, if portability is your priority, the GPD Win 4 might be a better fit for you. But, being honest, if just general use, if you're going to be using it in home rather than away, you will probably find the Steam Deck is a better purchase. One, it's got quite a fan, tends not to ramp up so much. It's actually a weaker processor, but it's That's its strength in this situation. So what else can we compare? Well, let's compare the battery next. So the GPD Win 4 and the Steam Deck have different battery capacities. They also have quite different power requirements. Now the Win 4 comes with a 57 watt hour, it's a 56 point something, but almost 57 watt hour battery, which is pretty big for its size. In fact, it's a triple stacked battery, which if you open up the unit, you'll see it's some videos out there already where they've opened up their units. I haven't opened mine because I don't have a set of screwdrivers that are thin enough to fit in the tiny holes. They're very deep set, the screws on the Win 4, so just be aware of that if you want to open it up and upgrade it. The battery life can vary quite a lot based on usage, and the estimates online are anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. But in my experience, if you just let it do its own thing, you're looking at, if you fire up something like Forza, it's going to go through the battery in about an hour. Just the usual, really fast depletion of the battery, because it will use all the power it's got. It'll ramp that fan up and it'll absolutely fly. But if you pull the battery power back, and I use this handheld companion here, and I'm not convinced it's doing as good a job as, say, the Steam Deck does with restraining its power. And I'm going to be testing Bazzite on this device and seeing how that compares battery life wise with just using Windows 11. Now, looking at the Steam Deck, the original Steam Deck has a 40 watt hour battery, but I do know that the new OLED model has a 50 watt hour battery, so still a little bit smaller than the GPD Win 4, but on average I would say the battery life is probably going to be a bit longer. I think when you really push it, if you were to really tweak the Win 4 and put it at 5 watts perhaps, 4 or 5 watts, play some light games, you could do things like park some of the cores just to bump performance, and, well, not all games need all 8 cores. You can restrict that to 4, save a little bit of power as well. You probably could get really long battery life out of the Win 4. I just haven't had a chance to fully test that as of yet, but I will do a video on that in the coming months. Now, as we all know, the Steam Deck's battery life just far outweighs the size of its battery. I mean, I had a big battery for when it landed, but it just seems the battery lasts forever, and standby time is very good on the device as well. Now, just remember, all these estimates are approximate. Now, but actual battery life absolutely depends on how you use your device. So if longer battery life is important to you, then perhaps the Win 4 would be for you because it has a larger battery, but only if you use it in the correct way. Now, let's look at charging since we're talking about the batteries. The charging time of both the GPD Win 4 and the Steam Deck depend on several factors. Obviously, it depends on your charger's wattage, battery capacity, and the usage while you're charging it. But let's look at what they both have. So I know the original Steam Deck comes with a 45 watt charger, but it can charge, I think, a little bit faster than that. I think I've plugged it into a 65 watt hour charge battery bank before, and it's charged pretty swiftly on that. The Win 4 also comes with a 65 watt, well, it doesn't also come with it, it comes with a 65 watt USB-C power delivery charger, which I showed you earlier in the video. And it will happily charge at pretty high speeds. I've seen it just in general use, topping up the battery and gaming, pulling well over 60 watts. So it's quite impressive. So yeah, I would say for charging them both up, you're probably going to charge up the Steam Deck faster, seeing as it has a slightly smaller battery. But generally speaking, they're fairly equal, I would say. Let's look at where the two devices switch direction quite a lot. The Steam Deck, as you know, has got a 7-inch screen. That dictates the whole size of the thing. Because it's a big screen, they've made the whole device big. The GPD Win 4 has a 6-inch screen, and they've gone absolutely out of their way to make the whole device as absolutely tiny and small as possible. Even things like the face buttons are shrunken down. But what I have noticed is a lot of people seem to be quite negative about the sticks. Well, maybe not negative, but not positive about the sticks. They comment the fact that they're ALPS sticks and not Hall effect sticks, which is a bit of a shame. I mean, I think the sticks are pretty good. You can use a bit of software. You can use a little bit, obviously you can use Bazzite, or you can use a little bit of Windows software, which has been provided by GPD after a little bit of criticism, where the dead zone was a little bit too big. Personally, I think the dead zones kind of suits my gaming needs. But the sticks, they feel to me similar sized to that of the AYN Odin 2, which has got quite small sticks, but they have a really wide range of movement, and that's kind of what I feel the sticks on the GPD Win 4 are like. Small sticks, but a large range of movement for their size. So they're not switch sticks, which is the main thing. Obviously, the Steam Deck is the only device out there that I've got that has absolutely massive full-size sticks. And much as I love those sticks, sometimes I just feel a little bit of fatigue in having to move my fingers so far. You know, when I'm gaming, like if you're doing something like, I don't know, Forza, and you're doing a long race, or you're doing a race that's quite long, one side of the map to the other, it takes quite a lot of concentration to be using such big sticks over, you know, a long period of time, especially if you're doing multiple races in a day. Anyway, moving on to the internals. Now, we know that the Steam Deck comes with the AMD Van Gogh APU, tried and tested. It's still holding its own in 2024. There's been a die shrink on that so far, and there's maybe some mild improvements on the OLED version over this, the original LED version. But the Win 4 has the AMD Ryzen 7 8840U, which is one of the latest Ryzen processors, and this thing is an absolute beast. It really kicks out the power. It's got 12 CUs of RDNA 3 graphics, and I've been thoroughly impressed with this so far. I'm just showing some footage just now. I'll go into a more in-depth video at a later date once I've tested some specific videos. You know, like I would do in the past, where I would create a video with these are the best settings for this game, for this device. So those videos will come soon. This is just an initial quick review. So we're looking at the performance. The Win 4 should thoroughly beat the Steam Deck in power and performance. But strangely, I've just noticed, I don't know how the Steam Deck does it. With SteamOS, it just seems to do more with less. And then when you install something like Bazzite, which is, you know, basically a clone, it never seems to quite deliver quite as well as Steam managed to do on their deck. Anyway, moving on to other features which are different. The GPD Win 4 has a QWERTY keyboard, which I never thought, well, I thought I would use it, but I never thought I'd use it much. So far, I have used the GPD Win 4 entirely in handheld mode. I have never docked it. I have never plugged the keyboard in, a wireless keyboard of any kind. I have used the built-in keyboard, the built-in little mouse nub thing, or using the switch on the side to use the sticks as a mouse. And so far, I found it fantastic. I set Bazzite up on this using just the screen, 6-inch screens, 1080p. Some of the text was very small, but still very legible. And the keyboard's been fine. Obviously, it's not like the type of keyboard that you could type a dissertation on, or, you know, a big email, but it's absolutely fine for, well, you can type with your thumbs, but I tend to find it's better typing one index finger. I just kind of sit here with the device at a slight angle and just tap away one-handedly. And yeah, I've found this to be pretty usable. I've never typed in any commands incorrectly, or not noticed that I've typed them in incorrectly. What else can we talk about? Well, from a gaming experience, I say this all the time, the best handheld is a handheld you have with you, and you're far more likely to travel, I think, with the GPD Win 4 than the Steam Deck, just because its overall size is so much smaller. It'll fit into that small gap in a bag much more than the Steam Deck. Quite often I've found with a bag, the Steam Deck is the main thing that goes in, and everything else has to fit around that. And that's the reason you're taking the bag, because you're going to take the Steam Deck, so you just feel the need to put other things in. Whereas, if you're already taking a small bag, you'll probably find space for the Win 4. Now, as we know, you can look on online, you'll see that the Win 4 is considerably more expensive than the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck at the moment can be purchased for under £300, I think it is, because there's a small sale on the earlier LCD models. I still think they're worth buying, especially at that price. At £300, you're getting a lot of hardware for a little money. Now, the Win 4 basically cost double that price, but it came with double the memory. It's got 32 gigs of RAM. Came with quadruple the storage of my original Steam Deck, which was the 512 gig version. This comes with 2 terabytes. It's a nice Western Digital drive that's in it. It's got a 1080p display. It's not an OLED, but it's very vibrant. I'm really impressed with how bright and vibrant this screen is, I have to say. It's got some of the best controls I've used, and also some of the smallest controls I've used. So like the D-pad, for example, is just pure PS Vita. It's a joy to use. It really is. The sticks, I like these sticks. I've got used to this size of stick, having the Odin 2, having the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. Both got very similar sticks, and this has similar sticks again. I'm quite used to gaming on Switch style sticks, so it doesn't really bother me so much. Face button wise, you know, the ABXY buttons are really small. In fact, they feel smaller than the buttons on my iNeo Air Plus, and that's got small buttons. Other things that I think are a bit odd, the bumpers, they feel like, or they look like the bumpers from a PSP, but they don't feel like it. There's hardly any travel to them. They're just a very, very small amount of travel. And I have the smoked ones, which there's RGB in here, but you can hardly see it. So I think perhaps the RGB will just get switched off at some point in the near future. The analog triggers, they've got very little range of movement. They feel almost like they're just regular switches rather than analog triggers. But when you actually check them, they are genuine analog triggers. They've just got about 50% of the travel that you expect. Now, that does make the unit maybe marginally more compact. It might look a little odd with bigger triggers, but I would have probably preferred bigger triggers, to be fair. That's my probably biggest criticism. That and the heat. Now, I know a lot of people have talked about the heat before, and on the earlier models, the 6800U and the 7840U, and I thought, well, the heat will not be that bad. I've got devices that get absolutely boiling hot. I've got things like the Anbernic Win 600. I mean, that's a real toasty boy. But no, if you have warm hands anyway, you'll find this device really, really warm. If you've got cold hands and you like them to be warmed up, this is the device for you. The fan itself kicks out quite a lot of air. But just in general, the unit just seems to warm up over time. Now, I think the processor itself, I can run pretty warm. I've seen it getting pretty close to 80 degrees. And I am going to open it up at some point and repaste it. But I need to order up a set of longer, narrower, thinner jeweler screwdrivers to use on this thing, precision screwdrivers. So that'll come at a later date. And in fact, I've just ordered my first iFixit kit, a Moray one. I have looked at a few teardown videos, and it does look like the thermal paste that's put on them isn't applying the greatest. And maybe there's room for improvement with some thermal pads as well. So I'm going to go down that route. I've seen some people have knocked down their general temperatures of the CPU by almost 10 degrees. That's going to reduce, obviously, the heat in the device. So I'm going to go down that route pretty soon. I'll do a teardown and go through that process soon. Might even take out the 2TB drive and stick a 4TB drive in. It's a 2280 NVMe, so full-size NVMe, we'll fit that in there, I think. Maybe say we're getting a 4TB. I can reuse the 2TB that's in this, no problem. I've got something that can go in it right now. And yeah, I think perhaps it's just the heat soak from the battery, or just the heat generated in the battery when this thing's in use. It's a triple battery, they're all stacked together. They generate quite a lot of heat. Looking at the device itself, to be honest, yeah, I think that's where most of the heat is. The left side, on your left hand, is where you feel most of it. So yeah, that's just my early review of this device. Am I impressed with it? Absolutely. It's taken me a while to set up, I have to admit. I might do a little short video linking together other content from YouTube on the best way to set up a dual boot, because I had lots of issues. Some of my issues were a little bit, well, I'm going to say self-inflicted. It was because I hadn't noticed a particular error was coming up, and I'd presumed it was to do with how I'd partitioned the NVMe drive, and it actually turned out to be the SD card. That was a me fault, and it probably added about 4 or 5 hours onto my setting this thing up process. But I now have it running really well with Windows partition, a Bazzite partition, and a shared gaming partition. So far, there's a couple of peculiarities. I've got one game that doesn't want to work. Works fine on Windows, but won't work in Bazzite. From what I can see online, it does work in Bazzite, so that's maybe because of the way I've set this drive up. And I'll share those tweaks that I've made so far, and I'll share the peculiarities of setting it up this way. Anyway, thanks for watching. It's been a bit of a longish video, I believe. I've just created voiceover. We're up to 19 minutes. The eventual video, I'm sure, will be a little bit shorter. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. I'll try and drop another one of these videos about the Win 4 in the next week, because I'm sure other people have noticed how cheap this is in comparison to its full retail price, and how closely priced that puts it to things like the ROG Ally at the moment. The Ally X is going to be, I think, potentially either right on the same price or slightly higher. And, well, it's bigger. People like bigger devices. I've got a video dropping soon about why I think a 6-inch device can meet most people's needs. Hang around for that. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like on this video. Leave a comment in the comment section. I love replying to people. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch you next video. Bye for now.